dancing. The radio clicks on. It's poor, swollen America, up already and busy selling the exhausting obligation of happiness, in the interstices of which commentators are debating whether or not a man who kills 50 people in 5 minutes with an automatic weapon he has bought for the purpose is mentally ill, or a terrorist, or if terrorists are mentally ill. Because if killing large numbers of people with sophisticated weapons is a sign of sickness, you might want to begin with fire. Our early ancestors, drawn to the warmth of it, from lightning must have been. The great booming flashes of it from the sky, the trees shriveled and sizzling, must have been an awful power, the odor of ozone at God's breath. Or grass fires, the wind whipping them, the animals stampeding, furious, driving hard on their haunches from the terror of it, so that to fashion some campfire of burning wood, old logs must have felt like feeding on the crumbs of the God's power. And they would tell the story of Prometheus the thief, and the eagle that feasted on his liver. Told it around a campfire must have been, and then centuries, millennia, some tribe of meticulous gatherers, some medicine woman or craftsman of metal discovered some sands that tossed into a fire burned blue or flared green. So simple the children could do it, must have been, and some soft stone rubbed to a powder that tossed into the fire gave off a white phosphorescent glow. The word for chemistry, from a Greek, some say Arabic, stem associated with metalwork. But it was in China 2,000 years ago that fireworks were invented. Fire and mineral in a confined space to produce power. They knew already about the power of fire and water and the power of steam. 100 BC, Julius Caesar's day in Alexandria, a Greek mathematician produced a steam-powered turbine engine. Contain, explode. The earliest depiction of a gunpowder weapon is the illustration of a fire lance on a mid-12th century silk banner from Dun Huang, Silk and the Silk Road. First Arab guns in the early 14th century. The English used cannons and a siege gun in Calais in 1446. Serignan, 1503, the first battle won by power of rifles when Spanish arquebusters cut down Swiss pikemen and French cavalry in a battle in southern Italy. Explosions of blood and smoke, lead balls tearing open the flesh of horses, and young men, peasants, mostly farm boys, recruited for the armies of their feudal overlords. How did guns come to North America? 2014, a headline in the New York Times. Divers discover the Santa Maria. One of the ship's Lombard cannons was stolen by salvage pirates off a Haitian reef where it had sunk. And Cortez took Mexico with 600 men, 17 horses, 12 cannons, and La Salle, 1679, constructed a 7-cannon bark, Le Griffon, and fired his cannons upon first entering the continent's interior. The sky darkened by the terror of the birds. In the dream time, they are still rising, swarming, darkening the sky, the chorus of their cries sharpening as the echo of that first astounding explosion shimmers on the waters, the crew blinking at the wind of their wings. Springfield Arsenal, 1777. Rock Island Arsenal, 1862. The original Henry rifle, a 16-shot 44 caliber rimfire lever action breech loading rifle patented. It was the age of tinkerers by one Benjamin Tyler Henry in 1860, just in time for the Civil War. Confederate casualties in battle, about 95,000. Union casualties in the battle, about 110,000. Contain, explode, They were throwing sand into the fire, a blue flare, an incandescent green. The Maxim machine gun, 1914, 400 to 600 small caliber rounds per minute. The deaths in combat, all sides, 1914 to 1918, was 8,042,189. Someone was counting. Must have been. They could send things whistling into the air by boiling water. The children around the fire must have shrieked with delight. 1920, Iraq, the people of that place were restive under British rule, and the young Winston Churchill invented the new policy of aerial policing, which amounted, sources say, to bombing civilians and then pacifying them with ground troops, which led to the tactic of terrorizing civilian populations in World War II. Total casualties in that war worldwide, soldiers 21 million, civilians 27 million. They were throwing sand into the fire. The ancestors who stole lightning from the sky, the ancestor who stole lightning from the sky had his guts eaten by an eagle, spread-eagled on a rock, the great bird feasting. They were wondering if he is a terrorist or mentally ill. London, Dresden, Berlin, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the casualties difficult to estimate. 66,000 dead, 70,000 injured in Hiroshima in a minute. Nagasaki, 39,000 dead, 25,000 injured. There were more people killed, 100,000 in more terrifying fashion in the firebombing of Tokyo. Two arms races after the ashes settled. The other industrial countries couldn't get there fast enough. Contain, burn. One scramble was for the rocket that delivers the explosion that burns humans by the tens of thousands and poisons the earth in the process. They were wondering if the terrorist was crazy, if he was a terrorist. Maybe he was just unhappy. The other challenge afterwards was how to construct a machine gun a man or a boy could carry, lightweight, compact, easy to assemble. First, a Russian sergeant, a Kalashnikov, clever with guns, built one on a German model. And so the heavy machine gun, the weapon of European imperialism, through which a few men trained in gunnery could slaughter native armies, became a portable weapon a child can operate, the equalizer. So the undergunned Vietnamese insurgents fought off the greatest army in the world. So the Afghans fought off the Soviet army using Kalashnikovs the CIA provided to them. They were throwing powder into the fire and dancing. Children's armies in Africa toting AK-47s that fire 30 rounds a minute. A round is a bullet. An estimated 500 million firearms on the earth. 100 million of them are Kalashnikov-style semi-automatics. They were dancing in Orlando in a club. Spring night, gay pride. The relation of the total casualties to the history of the weapon that sent exploded metal into the bodies of those young men. 30 rounds a minute or 40 is a beautifully made instrument, and in America you can buy it anywhere. And into the history they fired it of the shaming culture that produced the idea of gay pride. They were mostly young men. They were dancing in a club, a spring night. The radio clicks on, green fire, blue flyer, the immense flocks of terrified birds still rising in wave after wave above the waters in the dream time, crying out sharply as the French ship breasted the vast interior of the new land, America. A radio clicks on. The Arabs, a commentator is saying, require a heavy hand, dancing. They threw powder in the fire. They were dancing.